Today we're going to be discussing the week 2 matchup. Bears taking on the Houston Texans in Houston for Sunday Night Football. Dan, how you doing today, man?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's Friday. Get to discuss a little bit of football. It's an exciting weekend for football action. Yesterday, the Dolphins did take on the Bills. And then obviously the Bears do have that primetime matchup, Sunday Night Football in Houston. The Bears taking on the Texans. It's a big matchup for the Bears, right, Dan?
It's going to be a big deal. It's probably the most important game that we've seen so far, obviously, in the Caleb era. Maybe the most important in the last 2 seasons, just seeing how this team is built. There's a lot of expectations going into the game, but there's also a couple missing pieces, and we're going to go over that shortly on just like what pieces are unavailable, what pieces might be unavailable, and how that might impact our game. Obviously, we're expecting it to be a win. That's what all Bears fans want it to be, but we have to keep expectations a bit lower just because this is a primetime game. We know all the eyes are going to be on Caleb, so let's just hope that he will be able to perform. But otherwise, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Friday,
I agree.
made it. And it's been a while since we've been back here, right? Almost 2 days now, so it feels good to be back.
Yeah. Obviously, our last podcast, we were, diving into detail with the week 1 matchup. We did go a little bit more into detail just because it was the first week. We got a lot of new pieces, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, Roman Dunze, Caleb Williams, obviously. We kind of, dove into all the different plays and stuff. Kind of moving on with, all the different, when we recap all the different games, we'll kind of slim it down a little bit. We won't discuss every single play, but, with week 1 matchup, we wanted to make sure we kind of got all that information. It's kind of important because, the last few years we were so used to just screen passes every other pass or down. This year, we saw the offense do a little bit more than screen passes. Obviously, week 1, we didn't get a lot of yardage, but week 2 and then going on, it's going to be fun watching the offense, especially, this Bears defense, go into action and take it on. So really excited about that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, obviously the Sunday Night Football, Bears taking on Houston. Houston's a really good team. We saw them last year. CJ Stroud was a rookie last year. He got, new pieces. He's got Nico Collins. He's got Tank Dell. I think Nico Collins is going to be playing. He has an illness. They did report that he should be playing on Sunday. They got Tank Dell. Stephon Diggs is a new addition to this offense. Joe Mixon from the Bengals is now. Yeah. Yep. So it's a big matchup for the Bears. Yeah.
Right. They're a contender. So we have to respect them the way that they've played the last 2 seasons. And they did come off a pretty good win against Anthony Richardson and the Colts for week 1. So they're a high scoring offense, a lot of energy, a lot of players that they can, toss the ball to, especially when it comes to yards after catch. Like they have pretty high steam there. So it's going to be exciting to see how this matchup goes. Obviously, we got to, temper expectations, but it is also a pretty good matchup for Houston in regards to the way this Bears defense has been playing week 1 and before. So should be a great matchup. Really excited. So let's get into some information that we got here, huh?
Yeah, let's dive into it. So, we kind of know how the Bears have been in primetime games in the past, when Justin Fields was under center, Mitch Trubisky as well. The Bears just don't have the best, primetime record, when it comes down to Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, or if it's Monday Night Football as well. The Bears on Sunday, it's going to be a big game for the Bears because, we're repping our all orange jerseys or, uniforms, which is going to be a fun, addition to the Sunday Night Football.
I agree. And I think I might be incorrect. I'd love to search up this statistic again. I saw it on Twitter yesterday where Eberflus is 1 in 12 in primetime games as Bears coach, and the 1 win came against the Patriots, which that week was awesome. That was an incredible game. I remember Jaquan Brisker had that awesome interception. Justin Fields was playing out of his mind. So that was a while ago. That was last season. So hopefully we can kind of change that narrative and kind of get those wins up there. I'm not sure if we'll hit 500 anytime soon, but it would be nice to put another win in that category, so it's not just, a 5% winning chance on primetime games.
Yeah. So first Sunday, the Bears are, we're looking forward to it. We are underdogs. We are 6.5-point underdogs against Houston. It does make sense. We'll dive into detail just in a little bit about like why we're 6.5-point underdogs. Obviously, that week 1 matchup when the offense didn't really get going kind of, leads into it. Houston is on paper projected to be the better team. But also, we do have a few injuries in the injury report that, not good for the Bears right now, just because Houston is we kind of need all those pieces to take on Houston. It's a big, big matchup for the Bears, especially,
Very true.
We have, a few, we'll dive into that right now. We do have 2 injuries that are 2 big injuries, obviously, for the offense. We have Roma Dunze who did get hurt after week one. It was either that we talked about last podcast, but it was either one of the plays he was trying to block on with Velus Jones, and Velus Jones actually ran into him, or it was another play when he was trying to block on as well. He tweaked his knee, but he is questionable. He was limited in practice today on Friday, and then limited in practice yesterday. It's a big, if he is out, that's a big cornerstone of the offense that's going to be out. And then another big name, Dan, who's the other person that we're
the other big name we have is Keenan Allen. So he's shown up on a bit of injury reports, especially with the Chargers, because this is a little bit later in his career. He normally gets veteran days here and there, which is what he had on Wednesday, but he hasn't practiced a single snap, a single play, not even warm-ups on the side this entire week. So that is a bit of a concern heading into this matchup, just knowing how deep the Houston Texans are offensively and knowing that we are already shorthanded when it comes to having a rookie QB. So that's something we have to play upwards for. So it's a bit concerning, but I will say I support Keenan, and I know that chances are he does take the field because he understands how big of a matchup this is. And if you're giving someone a veteran day on a Wednesday, that kind of gives me the idea that maybe they're just trying to take it slow, and he trusts his body, and he's a veteran, so he's gonna do what's right for him, and likely to suit up. So we're gonna see there. But good news is that those are the only two main injury reports that we have for the Bears offense. Defensively, it looks a little bit different, but those players aren't necessarily questionable or out. They're just mainly the players that we know are going to be out are out, and the players that we know are going to play. So it's looking pretty good for week one. But again, that offense shorthanded could be trouble. Yeah, it could be trouble for Sunday Night Football. But Allen has been out all week due to a heel injury. Like you said on Wednesday, Dan, they said that it was a veteran day for Keenan Allen. He's 32. We saw him week one. He got 11 targets week one. So obviously, he's a big part to the Bears offense going forward. I trust Keenan Allen even if he didn't practice all week to suit up on Sunday. He's not one of those players where I'm like, he's not going to remember the playbook or whatever. He's a veteran. He knows what to do. But Rome Odunze, on the other hand, being questionable on Sunday, I think, the Bears should play this one safe. Obviously we want to see everyone, suit up on Sunday, especially, Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and, all the other players that are on the injury report. But it is, it's longevity, for the season. And if Rome re-aggravates that knee even more because it's a grade 1 sprain, he could be out for quite a bit longer. So it's, very important that we take this one, Rome takes this seriously. I think the Bears staff will, do this one right and either hold him out completely or just have him in, but limited him on the snap. So I don't see him going 100% on Sunday if he is in the game, but I do see him, if he is in the game, he will take some snaps. Maybe he'll get some red zone targets, but I don't see him playing 100%. Yeah, I could definitely see Rome having a snap count. I think that's a pretty good mid-level idea to him playing. It's not going to be fully 100%. Maybe he's somewhere between 70 and 90%, but that's just the story of sports, right? You got the young guys and the veterans. So the rookies are also trying to be cautioned with, and the veterans are trying to be just as cautioned with as well. So it's the way it goes, right? Yeah. But we just have to be, excited for this opportunity to play on Sunday Night Football. Whether they suit up or not, I believe Caleb should have some opportunity. He still has DJ Moore out there, so it's not the end of the world. That's similar to the lineup that we saw last week. We'll have a lot of different names that we're going to go through for wide receiver 3 who could replace both of those players and who we think is going to get the third most targets, including running backs, right? So we'll see exactly just how that matches up, and it should be a good one. Let's just hope that one of the two definitely can suit up. It looks like at the moment it's more likely to be Keenan than it would be Rome, even though Keenan did miss practice all week. Yeah. We do have a few more players on the injury report just to quickly discuss. Ryan Bates and Kerry Blasingame are ruled out for Sunday. Blasingame, big, fullback threat. He'd come back to the Bears, and then Ryan Bates, right guard for the Bears. He did take a lot of the snaps when I can't think of his name right now, when he got pulled out of the game just because he wasn't performing that well. Nate Davis, that's who it was. Yeah, Nate Davis. He didn't do a lot during the training camp. Pre-game or preseason games as well. And then he barely suited up for the first game, and he was immediately pulled after 10 minutes of the game just because he was not performing well. And Ryan Bates took over for him and did do much better
than Nate Davis did. So Brian Bates and Blasingame are ruled out. And then DeMarcus Walker, a defensive end, is questionable for Sunday as well. So it's going to be, obviously, we'll know a little bit more detail probably tomorrow as well. I think it's usually like Saturday nights. That's when kind of the report comes out like, oh, this player is for sure in, this player is for sure out. So we'll find out with Rome, Keenan Allen, and DeMarcus Walker as well. We'll find out if he is. And then there's no injury designation for Zach Pickens, which is good. So that means Zach Pickens could get some reps, and that's good for, going forward with the Bears and their roster.
Definitely,
as well.
Yeah. That's a name that we haven't talked about this much this season so far, even the preseason. Zach Pickens, just as explosive on the defensive end as the other top rookie that we got last year. So he's definitely a good sight to see. Definitely excited to have him back, especially if Walker isn't able to go. From what I've read this past week, it seems like he's also just kind of taking it slow, it being an early week, but he had a long time, not a super long time, about half a day longer when it comes to a Sunday night game. But things look good for the Bears defense when it comes to the health of everyone. And Zach Pickens, I'll be very excited to see him come back.
He needs those reps, and he could be a very valuable player for the Bears. So really excited to see Zach Pickens come back and get some reps in there as well. So you know what, Dan? Obviously, we'll just in a little bit, we'll kind of go over like the over and unders with all the players, just like we did last week. But kind of like I just want to kind of go over like what the Bears could basically do to improve on from week 1 to week 2. I know I have a few things kind of jotted down in my opinion, what I think the Bears could do to hopefully get this win over the Texans on Sunday Night Football, big matchup for them. But in my opinion, the number one thing that I think the Bears should do is, get that running game going, get the ground and pound like we've seen over the years, like I talked about last time with David Montgomery, Jordan Howard back in the day. It's good to get that ground and pound going, get the momentum flowing, because obviously, who did we sign in the offseason? We signed DeAndre Swift, 3 years, $24 million. We got him here for a run threat. He did well with the Eagles last season, and then B, pass threat. Get him, a pitch down. Get a screen pass to him. I think he is a very valuable piece to this Bears offense. Besides, our receivers. And I think Shane Waldron needs to realize that, we paid this guy $24 million. We got to get this guy going. And I call it, he's pretty Swifty. That's how he is. DeAndre Swift is Swifty.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a pretty deep running back room. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if we want to punish the Texans defense, you got to start with the run game. You got to start pushing them through the midline section and just try to get as many running backs reps as possible. And we both know how that's going to help a rookie quarterback, because that makes us a little bit less one-dimensional, where it's going to make him scared to try to rush us or rush the QB, because then Caleb can make a pretty simple pass and it's going to give him more completions. I think it's a great idea, is that we don't want more of those batted passes where they're expecting it to be a pass immediately. So definitely try to get that run game going. I totally agree. I think that's something we saw last year a lot. Those are the games that we kept close when we started off early running the ball. I want Swift to have at least over 50 yards by halftime. So I think that'd be a good plan. The way that he played last game wasn't spectacular, but he obviously, stood his ground. He did help us get a few first downs here and there. But one thing I had written down here is that something I remember from the last game is that we had a lot of plays that would end up, 1st and 10, where it would go from 1st and 10, we go for a rush, and then it'd be like 2nd and 13, right? 2nd and 14, 2nd and 11. And it's not horrible losing those 3 yards, but obviously that puts a little bit more pressure on Caleb, because on Caleb, everyone knows that he has to make a throw, and everyone knows who he's going to target, especially if Keenan and Rome can't suit up. So that's just going to make us a little bit more one-dimensional. So the run game, you got to punish them on defense. Yeah,
I agree. Getting that run game going is huge for the Bears offense, especially, we didn't talk about this already, but Texans defense is a very good defense. Who did they sign in the the offseason? DeAndre Hunter from the Vikings. He's another edge rusher. He got a big contract. He's what they, the Texans got him for a reason, is that basically to rush the quarterback. And who's on the other side of that? We got Will Anderson Jr. last year, pick from last year's draft, who was a stud last year. So they're going to be trying to attack Caleb. And if our offensive line can't hold that up, Caleb's going to be sacked at least 4 to 5 times, especially if we have a pass play, if it's a drop back pass play. The drop back pass plays are not going to work Sunday night. They might work once in a while if there's not a lot of pressure going to them, but just, we getting that run game going and gain some pressure off Caleb and that offensive line. Let DeAndre Swift do the work. Let Khalil Herbert get some more, some more carries as well. Because like we discussed last time, Khalil Herbert, Travis Homer, and Velus Jones only got 2 rushes apiece. So they got 6 total rushes between all 3 of them. And DeAndre Swift took the bulk load. So give Swift all the carries that we can. If he needs a break, we got Khalil Herbert for a reason. He is fast. He's shifty as well. And we got, Velus Jones is on this team for a reason too. He, I don't trust him being a wide receiver. I don't trust him catching the ball whatsoever. But we saw like the plays in the preseason. If it's that sweep play around, if he's lined up in, the wide receiver and he kind of sweeps around, catches the ball behind, wraps around for a sweep play, he can get 20 yards. He's pretty fast. We got him for punt returns and kickoff runs, but it's just, that's not his game we've seen.
And though we can question Velus's hands and how good he is of a pass catching running back or wide receiver, these running backs we have are great pass catchers, right? We saw Herbert last year take so many dump offs to the house, like 70-yard touchdowns, 50-yard touchdowns. So that's another edge of the game that we can definitely lean on, and that's going to help Caleb, stack up the stat sheet a little bit just to get a couple more dump offs here. So DeAndre Swift definitely has an important game coming up for him. I think Herbert also has an important game because, 2-head punch, if that's something that we can try to manage and try to get both those running backs involved, maybe 10 carries each, that would be a phenomenal way to start off the first half.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the main key point I think that we both kind of, we want to see the Bears to do on Sundays. Let's get this run game going a little bit more. Let's get some pressure off Caleb week 1. He had those jitters week 1. Let's just get that run game going. And that could help our offense, go down the field and, get some stress off especially the offensive line and Caleb as well. So, Dan, kind of moving
another player. Yeah.
Kind of moving to the next player. This is a big because, we did sign him, I believe, what was it last year? We did sign him to an extension. It was last offseason, about a year ago. Obviously Arlington Heights native Cole Kmet. He's a big player to this, offense, and he could be a big player to this offense, especially if Rome's out and Keenan Allen's out on Sunday, because where are the targets going to go otherwise, unless we bring up some people from the practice squad, like maybe Colin Johnson, who was, a big part. But yeah, I think so. Kind of with the stats we have written down right here is that, Cole Kmet on last Sunday against the Titans, he played 27 snaps last Sunday. And 21 of those snaps are lined up in the tight end position. So that means 6 of those snaps he was in there just to block. So Cole Kmet, he's a huge offensive threat. We signed him to a great deal at the right time, before tight ends are starting to make a little bit of money. And we got to utilize him, right, Dan?
Oh, definitely. He's someone who's been here like through the thick and thin, so he kind of deserves more playing time. He deserves more targets, and obviously it's a crowded room when it comes to the offensive pass catchers. But I think Cole Kmet still has so much depth when it comes to being a safety blanket for Caleb, because he can stretch the field, he can go far, make one-handed catches, he can make contested catches, or he could, again, like we mentioned before for the running backs, he can take simple dump offs and then, lead the team in yards after catch. So he is also going to be a big name here. We talked a little bit about, Gerald Everett and Mercedes Lewis, how they had also a lot of percentage on snaps, and they were playing a lot of the game. So I think that's more so just kind of strengthening the idea of having taller pass catchers, because it seemed like a lot of the balls that Caleb was throwing was, a little bit low, or a little bit high as well. So I think they were just trying to get people with a little bit of a, broader base and try to get some easy yardage from there. So I definitely see him picking it up. I don't see Shane Waldron looking at this game and being like, okay, you know what, we should take a similar route. I think he's going to try to push it to, make the big stars on the offense shine on a Sunday Night Football game. So I see more from Cole for sure.
Yeah, he did, comment in a press conference a few days ago being like, we're going to start our players that we want to start. So obviously I think he knew he screwed up week 1, only having Cole Kmet, block for, 6 plays and, do 21 plays, 27. No, yeah, it was 21. I'm sorry. Him lined up as tight end. But, Gerald Everett, we just kind of talked about, he did see more snaps than Cole Kmet last Sunday. And I think the big reason why is that the Titans defense, for the last game, the Titans defensive line was really getting to Caleb Williams pretty quick. And so Gerald Everett, in those snaps he was in, he had 34 snaps last Sunday he was in, and only 15 of those snaps he was lined up as a tight end, which means 19 of those snaps he was just in for blocking. So basically they had Gerald Everett blocking to make sure that nobody gets to the quarterback. So I think that was what Shane Waldron wanted, so that Caleb doesn't take a lot of sacks. He took that 19-yard sack. It was a big sack by him. But yeah, I think using Cole Kmet more, and then kind of flip-flopping, Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet kind of get the defense a little rattled just by not knowing if Cole Kmet's going to be blocking or passing. Same thing with Gerald Everett. Kind of mix up the flow a little bit. That will kind of get the Texans secondary little bit started.
I agree. Yeah, some trickery, right? Some good old fashioned trickery, especially against a team that knows what they're going to expect from a rookie quarterback. It would be nice to see this team take a different approach to that and play with some heart, play with some grit. Going forward on fourth downs, that kind of thing. I think definitely seeing trusting the pass catchers. I trust Gerald Everett the same way I trust Cole Kmet to make a catch. So I think he got like a few passes thrown to him last game, Gerald Everett. But again, he's excelled pretty well when he had a quarterback play from Justin Herbert with a player like Keenan Allen beside him. So I definitely see the tight ends progressing a lot this game, better than they did the last one.
Yeah, I agree. Because, obviously we talked about, all the players questionable, Rome and Keenan, that having both the tight ends could, help at this out, help that offense out as well on Sunday Night Football. So the next kind of point that I have here, this one's kind of a little bit of a question mark just because of the situation the Bears are in with the injury report, is that, I said, Velus Jones needs to sit week 2, but obviously if we have 2 wide receivers out, Velus is not going to sit week 2, just because I think the big reason why I said that is just because, he had that huge muffed kickoff that was not a good play by him whatsoever. But it seems like the only thing that's kind of working right now for Velus is rushing the football. We just talked about, like maybe a sweep play or whatever. But if Rome and Keenan are out, Velus is for sure going to be in. They're not going to sit Velus on Sunday. So what do you think about that?
Totally. I mean, Velus has speed. So that's the one thing I like about him. He's definitely shown in the preseason he can catch the ball pretty well in between the hashes and run across the field. So I trust him when it comes to the way he can perform on his legs. I do think he earns himself a larger role in this game, unfortunately, than he did the last game. And I say that unfortunately because, as you can imagine, Bears Twitter has said nothing but great things, wink, about Velus Jones this entire week. So he's a great player. I'm going to still give it to him. I think he has a little bit more work to do when it comes to trusting him on special teams. But as a runner and as a receiver on three receiver sets, like I think he could do a good job. And let's also think about the idea that if the Bears are down early, he's going to see a lot of playing time, and I think he's a player that should get the ball often just because he can get us some easy yards. Yeah,
I agree. And kind of the last point I have just before week 2, and this is like another question mark too, because we did see that injury report, with Ryan Bates, officially out for Sunday. As I said, Nate Davis did not have a good week 1 game. He got pulled after 50 minutes into the game. I saw, a report saying Nate Davis is on the sideline. He's not injured. He's just sitting there because Ryan Bates did take over and did do a really good job at right guard. But now Nate Davis, I think he needs to realize that this is with Ryan Bates out, this is his time to kind of shine a little bit. Just because we did pick up Nate Davis last season, I think it was a 3-year deal for Nate Davis. It was pretty cheap money to have him on our team, but this is his time for him to come in right guard. I don't know who the backup right guard is by no means, just because I know it was Ryan Bates and Nate Davis just kind of switching off. But this is, Nate Davis.
He's got some work this week.
Yeah.
He's got some work to do. He definitely can show some improvement. I'm rooting for him. I think he definitely has an opportunity to show off this game when it comes to the grit of the defense on the other side for Houston. I would be very excited to see him play well, and I'd be very excited to see him get some minutes. I think when you look at a young guy such as him, he wants to thrive, especially if sitting out the rest of the game week 1. I think the offense is going to put a little bit more trust in him, saying that, hey, like, this is your last shot. Not technically his last shot, but this is your last chance for us to sit here and go, we don't need to worry about this position anymore. And so I think this is going to be a big day for him. We'll see just exactly how that goes. I think he has some ups and downs, but again, with the injury history that's happening behind him, I think it's important for him to stay healthy himself and stay inside the zone and protect the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so that's kind of basically, wrapping up, just, kind of previewing just the matchup. Now we'll kind of get into over-unders with all these players. unfortunately, just because of the question marks with the wide receivers for Sunday with Rome and Keenan, I did look before we started this podcast just to see if those stats were up. We don't have any Bears receiver stats up on FanDuel yet. But kind of just like we are the 6.5-point underdogs Sunday Night Football against the Texans. So yeah, just with the ones we have kind of here right now, we do have passing yards listed, and we do have rushing yards listed, just because there's no injuries on that end. So kind of diving into it first. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams passing yards. So obviously it did get dropped down a lot from the last one. I believe it was like 250.5 before for week 1. Now he's dropped down to 217.5 for the over under on his passing yards. So Dan, what do you think about him either going over or under 217 yards?
I do love the number here. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go 200 exactly. I think I'd be very happy to see him hit 200. I think I'm more worried about the completion percentage. I'd love him to just throw out 20 passes, see him get comfortable in the offense, especially against a defense that's pretty not mediocre. I mean, they're a contending team. So I'm more worried about the completion percentage. I think when it comes to yards, he's going to do a few checkdowns here and there, but I want to see some long passes. I want to see a lot of passes, and it doesn't really matter to me how many yards he gets at the end of the day. I think it's just over the number he got last week, right? 95. Yeah. I think if he can get over that, then I feel a little bit more proud rather than concerned. So I'm going to go 200 here. I think 217 is an excellent number, but 200 I feel comfortable with.
I am going to take the under as well with this at 217.5. I'm right around with you. I think he's going to get right around, if I took a ballpark, I'd say 180 to 200 yards. Anything above what he did last week, 95 yards, is a huge step in the right direction for Caleb Williams. It is a big question mark with these receivers out on Sunday. Rome's a big piece. Keenan's a big piece. I do see Keenan suiting up. Rome, on the other hand, I'm not sure about. I don't know how the Bears, coaching staff is going to play this. But I do see, Caleb figuring out a little bit more work with the tight ends. DJ Moore, I feel like is going to I think DJ Moore is going to feast. We'll talk about his kind of like what he's going to do about receiving yards, especially since he is the wide receiver one. And if there's more receivers out, then I think, he's going to be whatever. So, so now let's go into the rushing yards. DeAndre Swift has, his over under is 42.5 currently on FanDuel. What do you think, Dan?
I'm going to the over here. I think, again, we punish them on the run. I think we really push the offense here. And I think I want to see he gets 100 yards. I think he has the best game, obviously, of the year so far. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, but he definitely gets over 30 yards here. I think he definitely gets over 42.5. I put him in the 60-yard range. I think he's going to get 12 carries, 60 yards. I'm very happy with that kind of outcome. And I think it's just because they're going to try to split it up a little bit, not be so one-dimensional in the running back room, add a few names in there. I think Velus Jones gets a lot of carries there too. So, yeah, I'm really happy with 60.
Yeah, I'm going to go the over as well. I think 42.5 is a fair number to hit the over. I think right around 50 yards is perfect for DeAndre Swift. If the Bears do want to win on Sunday against the Texans, the rushing game does need to get going. I know we discussed that earlier, but DeAndre Swift, he's a cornerstone to this offense. He's very, he's pretty swifty. Just, obviously, jokes aside, but he's a good player for this offense, and got to get, Will Anderson. We got to get DeAndre Hunter. We got to get those guys a little bit tired on the defensive line. That's a big, if we keep doing 3 and outs, the Bears are not going to win this game. So DeAndre Swift needs to be on this field. Khalil Herbert needs to take over as well. And let's see if we can get some Velus action on the rushing. I'm fine with him, getting some rushes as well, kind of screw up that offense, especially if we do have our receivers out and he lines up, on the sideline like he's, going for a deep pass and he kind of wraps around. Might mess up the defense a little bit. So I do see DeAndre Swift going over 42.5 here.
I agree.
Yep. All right, and then the last one that we do have set in stone just for Sunday, just because receivers are in a question. We have Caleb Williams rushing yards. It's currently set at 17.5. I'll go first with this one. I think he's going to go under. I think right around 15. I see him gonna rushing. I do, kind of after I just said the under, he might have a big play where he just kind of has to scramble and rush for 20 yards. But I don't know if that's going to happen, especially in Houston with the defense. I'm going to hit the under with this one. I think right around 15 or 13 to 15 yards for him or Caleb rushing. We wanted him to stay in the pocket if we can. Obviously, scrambling out, get these pass plays. But if the play is broken down like we saw in week 1 where he did scramble to the sideline, he did run it out of bounds. That was, obviously big. What about you, Dan?
I feel this seems like ways you. I think the number's awesome, 17.5, because I'm going to take the over here. I do think he gets one of those long rushing plays. It just seems like one of those games that it's going to be pass heavy. And I think Caleb's going to be pushing the idea of let me hit 200 yards, let me hit 20 completions. I think Shane Waldron is going to tell Caleb, like, this game's prime time. Like, you got to show off, show off what you can, but still be a smart, reliable player. And I think with that coming in, I think there's going to be, I think he rushes 4 times. I think he gets 4 rushes here, and I think he gets well over 20 yards. Just a few rushes, just knowing that he's going to have to evade the pocket when his receivers aren't downfield, or if he just doesn't trust the receivers that are out there. And that's playing along with the idea of Keenan and Odunze not playing, because I think it's going to make him trust his legs a little bit more just to get a few first downs. So I see that happening, especially if we're down big. I see him using his legs a lot more.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, man. All right, so now obviously, just because of all the different questions on the offense for the Bears, we don't have any receiver lines. But Dan, let's just come up with some numbers on the fly. Just with we have Rome and Keenan. So let's start off with our veteran presence, Keenan Allen. Let's see, like, if I did set an over under for him, I would say the over under just with his injury would probably be set around 45.5. And I would take the over on this if Keenan plays, because Keenan is going to be a big target, especially if Rome is out. DJ Moore, in my opinion, is going to feast as well. I'm going to take the over. If it is 45.5, that's my wild guess. I will take the over on him. I'd say he gets around 50 yards. What do you think?
I think the exact same thing. I think I have mine as over 50.5. Sure. I do think he gets 50 yards. I don't think he's the top rated pass catcher in this game. And when it comes to the people in a Bears uniform, I think he gets 50 yards easily. I think he's, again, one of those players that is going to be pretty low-key when it comes to the idea of him scoring a touchdown. I think it's just Caleb's going to trust him in the end zone the same way he targeted him last week. Again, a lot of the game would look different if we understood that, Caleb got a touchdown pass, his first career touchdown pass, so that would have been nice. But I do think that happens this week if Keenan plays. We saw a similar play. I think we see a similar play that was ran last week when it's just like a fade route hitting him in the corner. Yeah. So I'd like to say 50 yards and a touchdown is kind of where I'm at here. Ooh, I really trust the way Keenan can be a safety blanket for Caleb.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Dan, who's the next player?
Next, we got DJ Moore, obviously. So DJ Moore, wide receiver 1. I think we're going to go with a higher number than he would for Keenan, just because I think he's going to be the most targeted player. I think I have him at 70 yards. I think he gets 70 yards. I think he gets 5 or 6 catches. I think he could go over on that. I think DJ Moore also gets 1 big play. There was a couple catches that last game that felt like big play potential, but he got tackled early or something like that. So I think he does slip out for a few more runs here. I would love to see him get 100 yards this game. I think it's just the idea that we might be down. Who knows? But I think at that point, if we're down, then I bump up the numbers for these wide receivers here. I think there's going to be a lot of easy checkdowns, a lot of passes through the middle. So I think I like the idea of DJ Moore going over 70 yards. I like that.
Yeah. Especially if Rome's out, in order for the Bears to win, DJ Moore at least has to have 60 yards. If DJ Moore has less than 60, that means I don't think anybody else is going to have more than 50, 60 yards. I think DJ Moore, right around 70 is a good point. I like what you're saying, Dan. I think 70 is a good point. I do see him breaking out for 1 big play. Maybe the defender misses the tackle. He's a speedy guy. I think he can get a 40-yard play just like that. But DJ Moore, I believe, 70 yards is good. If he ends up hitting 100, and maybe let's see if he gets a touchdown too on a broken up play by the defense, it'll be a great game for DJ Moore, and that's how the Bears can stay in this game and potentially get that win on Sunday Night Football.
Very true. Yeah, I'd be very excited to see that, because I do think he's got that big play potential out of anyone else in a Bears uniform at the moment. So I would definitely see him hitting 100. I don't think that's out of the question. Yeah. And so next, obviously, we're going through some questionable players. Odunze, I don't think suits up this game, but if you had to give him a number, Tyler, compared to his 1 catch that he had last week, which I would hardly call it a catch, but what do you think his stat line would be for this game?
If he did have a over under, let's say sportsbooks put him over under, if he would be limited in the snaps, in my opinion. I think his over under will probably be around 23.5, maybe just a few catches. I could see him maybe slightly hitting the over, but I could also see him slightly hitting the under, just with maybe 2 to 3 catches, just because he'll be limited if he does play on Sunday. The Bears, coaching staff does not want him to re-aggravate that knee, because then that's a huge, if he ends up, tweaking his knee one more time. He avoided a big injury. That's all we say. He said he heard a pop in his knee. he avoided a big injury, and Bears fans are really very grateful for that, because he could have been out for at least a few weeks, like more than a few weeks, maybe a month. So would have been pretty bad. So I got him probably around 20 yards if he does play, 20, 25 yards. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I love that idea. I think 20 yards makes sense. I think if he does play, right, he's going to get 30% of the snaps. I don't think he's going to play very, very much. I think he gets a few catches here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think two catches for 20 yards. I think it's going to be more so drawn up plays for him rather than him running routes and Caleb, throwing a dart to him. I think there are going to be plays that are drawn up for Rome just to get him comfortable again, see how he's playing and see how he's feeling. It's also just to get, Caleb a few more checkdowns. I do think 2 catches for 20 yards is what I'd say. So yeah, I think I like that number a lot, but there's also chances that he doesn't suit up. And at that point, we'd have to talk about a couple different wide receiver 3s here. So I have a couple names here, some popular names that we have. Rome Odunze is one of them. Here are the players that I think could, pop off as a wide receiver 3 for the Bears this Sunday, especially if it's a high scoring game. We have names like DeAndre Carter, Tyler Scott, Colin Johnson, Velus Jones, and obviously Rome. So Tyler, which one of these names do you think impresses you the most for someone that could, come off with a few catches, whether that's 1 catch or 5 catches? What name do you think you wouldn't be surprised to see?
I like the name Tyler Scott for the Bears. I really do. He's the Bears got him for a deep ball threat. He was part of Cincinnati. That's what he was used for, was being the deep ball threat, especially if DJ Moore is going to be a deep ball threat. But if he can line up on the other side of the field and potentially get a deep balls thrown to him by Caleb, I like Tyler Scott. He's always that player where everyone's like, if we can get him going, he will be a great prospect for the Bears. I like him being the wide receiver 3. I know I was going to say Colin Johnson, but we saw the work with Colin Johnson with the backup quarterbacks in preseason. We never saw it with Caleb. So I do like Tyler Scott. This could be his opportunity, to rise and, get maybe 30 yards or something like that, being wide receiver 3. There was a few plays in preseason where he did outbeat, the defenders, but obviously some of these quarterbacks didn't see him open. But I like Tyler Scott. How about you?
Mm-hmm. I like Tyler Scott as well. I think he's a deep threat. I think he's someone that definitely Shane Waldron is going to look for. He's going to tell Caleb, try to get a couple deep passes here. Tyler Scott's definitely one of the faster guys on the team. And we could talk about the injuries to the offense all we want, but I think regardless of Keenan and Rome suiting up, I think Tyler Scott should get a few deep targets once in a while. He proved it last year. Like, he made a couple good catches when Justin Fields was quarterback, and whether they were bad throws or good throws, I think he usually ends up with the ball because he's a faster target. I think other than Tyler Scott, though, I will say I think I have a lot of trust in Velus this week. I think Velus does get a few catches, and I think they kind of give him, they don't hand the ball to him that often this game. I think they're going to give him a few fade routes and just some routes to go through the middle and try to see how many yards he can get after catch, just to see that speed. He might get a couple rushes, but I think he goes over catches over rushes this week. So I think he's used more as a wide receiver than a running back. I
like that prediction. I do. Yeah, kind of the last thing, just to wrap up kind of with the over-under. Obviously, we talked about, week 1 with the last one. Bears defense did take over that game. They're the reason why we won week 1. If the Bears defense wasn't there, then yeah. Let's go with, let's see, how about half on a Bear, defensive takeaways, like an interception, a fumble. What do you got, Dan? If it's put at about a half, do you have them hitting the over or the under on the Bears defense?
At a half, I definitely have them hitting the over. I have them getting 2 takeaways here. I think this game, especially with Stroud and the amount of receivers they have, Stroud isn't much of a running back. He doesn't run the ball that often, and they're going to have Joe Mixon running the ball for them. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon isn't a huge yards per carry kind of guy, so he's going to be more of a pass catching back. So in my eyes, I do see them throwing the ball a lot, which makes me think that the cornerbacks are trying to get their eye on the target here. We don't have much tape when it comes to C.J. Stroud versus the Bears defense, especially from last season. But I do think the Bears are, a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the way they can catch the balls in front of their open receivers. I do think we get 1 takeaway that way, and then I'd like to see a fumble here or there, maybe like a block punt again. That would be really cool. But I do think interceptions are the way to go this game. I think we see Stroud throwing the ball a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 interceptions from his end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got them over the half as well. I think there's going to be 1 pass where potentially the receiver, accidentally has it knocked out of the hand, goes up in the air. Maybe Jalen Johnson or, Jaquan Brisker snags it out of there. I do see them going about over the half if we have Bears defensive takeaways at over the half. I do think they can get an interception. If we can get a fumble, a strip sack out of CJ Stroud on Sunday, it would be a big part for the Bears defense. And there'll be Bears defense needs to be there on Sunday in order for the Bears also. We talk about rush game needs to be there. The Bears defense also needs to show up on Sunday in order for us to potentially get that win Sunday night in Houston. So
I agree.
Yeah.
So that looks like it pretty much wraps it up. I mean, each player is definitely going to have the opportunity to shine in this game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. One last question. What do you think the final score is going to be here?
Ooh, that's a good question. We didn't even discuss this. The final score for Houston Bears. I think the Bears will take the win in Houston to shock everybody Sunday night. I think we're going to take the win 24-17. How about you?
24-17. I like that score. I think I'd go 27-20. I do think the Houstons get this game. I think it's just a little bit shorthanded for the Bears, and I think it's a week that's more important, that the practice is more important than the actual game, which doesn't happen often. I think it's just getting Caleb acclimated to primetime games, getting him used to the idea of you're facing a quarterback that has proven himself. Let's see how well you can prove yourself this game as well. I think 27-20. I think Caleb gets 2 passing touchdowns. I think that's the big key for me. I think Caleb gets 20 passes, 2 passing touchdowns, pretty easy catches. I think 1 goes to Swift, 1 goes to Keenan or more. And that's I'm pretty excited about that fact. I do see it being a close game, but I don't see it being a fourth quarter game is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I do see the game as like a Bears are kind of playing from behind, but otherwise it's going to be a close game. I'm very excited to watch. Again, no pressure. I think this is a game that if we do end up with a loss, let's just be happy that we won week 1. And this team is going through strides, and they're excited to play. At least the defense is energized, the offense is getting healthier by the minute. So let's just stay excited, stay positive. But how more positive can we be than we're already expecting a loss, right? What can I say? So, but no, I'm really excited for this week.
Yeah, week 1, obviously getting that win against the Texans. Well, the Bears defense getting that win against the Texans was huge to start off the season, because if we didn't, we'd be 0-1. This is a big matchup for the Bears. Week 2 Sunday Night Football. Texans are the better team. So let's say Houston does come up with the win. Starting off 0-2 to start the season would not be good. So getting that win last week was huge. Houston is the better team. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. I do see, the Bears, obviously we've seen that Mike Ditka picture with, him, everybody picking Green Bay, and then Mike Ditka, try to explain why he picked the Bears. That's why I'm every week I'm always going to pick the Bears. Even if they're playing, but realistically, Houston is the better team. I like, the Bears doing well on Sunday. I think they have a lot to prove, especially wearing their orange jerseys, because they do not have a good record wearing their orange jerseys or any of the other alternate jerseys. They never have a good record. So I do think the Bears are going to, the idea of them on Sunday Night Football, especially in a primetime game, they don't have good record as well. They want to, prove that. And I think Caleb is ready for Sunday Night Football to be kind of, under the light, shining, so everybody could watch him on NBC for Sunday Night Football. So
I think it's a big moment for him to turn the stone, right? I think it's this game this week should be the week where everyone goes, like that's why he was the number 1 pick, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's him using both his legs and his arm, I think it's a big week, and I think that's what we see. I do have an expectation of this week we see what Caleb is made of. I'd be very excited to see that.
Yep.
So.
Cool.
With that, I guess that concludes this week's week 2 preview, and so we'll be able to. Obviously, Todd and I will be communicating during the game. There's a chance we might watch the game together, but we'll definitely come back to you guys next week with a new update on how week 2 went, and obviously keeping expectations leveled. Don't go too high. Don't go too high. Don't go too low, because that's how the last week went. But keep your head on straight, Bears fans, and let's try to get this win, huh? Starting off 2-0, that'd be pretty exciting.
That'd be an awesome start for the Bears. But like we always say every week, we appreciate all the watches and the listens that you guys do. We love talking about the Bears football. It's a great year to be a Bears fan. It's always a great year to be a Bears fan. But we love discussing all the different facts that happen, what the game, recapping all the different weeks. We'll be back after every week, talking about what happened each week. Kind of, previewing the next week as well. And, we love discussing, especially with these previews, the over and unders. It's a fun little topic that we kind of get to do, and we get to, describe, why we think that. So it's a lot of fun. So cool. All right. We appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend, and, Sunday night, get ready to bear down.
Bear down. See you later.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks, guys.